Awesome. Thank you very much. And actually, talking of rock stars, Sam, I noticed OWASP is 25 years old, and I thought, how long Sam been with the London OWASP community? So I googled it.
17 years, 2008.
2008, you joined.
Yeah. And 2000.
2008. Let's see if AI is correct here. 2008, you joined. 2010, it thinks you became a member. 2015, you led the OWASP community. Right. I've led a number of communities, and running a community for over 10 years is insanely hard work. So great job, Sam.
Right. Thank you. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, real pleasure to be here to speak to you all. I've known Sam probably like 6, 7, 8 years maybe, and I've presented a few times at OWASP. I usually actually take a selfie of myself with the crowd just to prove to my family I'm not just staying out drinking in London. But my kids, I think, are on the live stream. So hello, Joshua. Hello, Ollie. Make sure you go to bed at a reasonable time. Cool. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how we can use AI, agentic agents, to help us write secure code, identify issues in our code, and fix things in our code. We're also going to do some live hacking to prove that what is wrong in our code is actually wrong in our code, and we're going to exploit some issues. Yeah, my background is Sneak, and I've worked there from the early days for like about 6, 7 years. So you'll probably see a little bit of that in today's session as well. First of all, who's using an agentic coding agent today? Like Claude Code or something like that, Cursor maybe, a few others. Who's a developer as well, out of interest? Okay, a good number. Right, we're going to do some live hacking. You don't need to be a developer here to do some live hacking. Okay, so when we are using something like Claude or Cursor or something like that, we can provide a number of instructions. The agent will work out an answer. It will spit me back an answer. It'll probably use its training data. It'll probably use some fine training, but it uses something really important to be able to give us an accurate answer, and an answer that we want. And that thing is context. Now, context is something that you can provide too much of, too little of, very, very easily. If you provide too little, the agent will give me an answer back. That answer will probably not be the answer I would want. If I give it too much, it'll actually get overwhelmed, it'll get confused, and very often it'll give me the wrong answer. It'll do compaction, which is a stage where it removes a bunch of its context from its environment, and then you have to tell it all the same things again. And it gets very, very frustrating. When you start one-shotting actions, that's likely because you've got a really good amount of context for the agent to actually do what it needs to do. Now, recently, something came out called skills, and a skill is essentially a piece of context that you can wrap up, provide to an agent, and that agent will activate that skill based on a name and description that you provide that skill. And it will say, okay, I need some help with this task. Let me activate this skill. It'll give me instructions and guidance of how I need to do this thing. It'll learn, and then it'll provide that answer back. Now, skills, you can have any number of skills, too many, of course, and again, it will get overwhelmed, but any number of skills that you can provide this agent, it'll use it similar to how it uses tools. Again, there are some security concerns about just providing any old skill to an agent. And that skill can provide us with many things. It can provide us with, maybe it's advice of our coding practices. Maybe it's our security policies. Maybe it's good security best practices. And that's what we're going to show you today in this environment. Okay, so let me just grab something up. Right, so what I'm going to do, I've got no slides, by the way, so I'm going to hopefully live code the vast majority of this. Okay, so I'm going to come to an environment. Actually, let's show you an application first, a very, very straightforward and simple application. This is actually the Sneak application. It's an intentionally vulnerable application. We're gonna play with it. We're gonna do some attacking in just a second. It's a very simple to do application. I might say let's buy the OWASP 25-year cake. Let's become a member. Become an OWASP member. So I can get that, if nothing else, get that cool sticker. and so forth. There's also, I'll wait for Sam to take that photo. There's also the about page, which is an incredibly modest about page and not very good. That application that we're going to attack, and I'll ask you, I say attack, we're going to attack this application in just a second. Now, I've got my application here in my local environment, Node.js Goof. The first thing I want to do is I've got Tessel installed. I've curled Tessel on my environment. First thing I want to do is run Tessel init. What that's going to do is it's going to identify all the context that I need locally on my machine. Now, I have a package JSON. This is a Node application. I have a package JSON here locally on my machine, ton of dependencies. So when I hit return there, it's going to say it's found 22 tiles to install, a tile package of context. So in this case, there are 22 libraries that we are using that we've just downloaded context for. That context can now be used by the agent when it wants to develop that application using those very specific libraries. It also detected that I'm using 6 agents to build my application, including Claude Code, Cursor, etc., etc. What this does now is when I run Cursor, it'll add various aspects in there to use that context. Now, the one thing I want to do is I want to do a Tessel install of a very specific skill, which is called cisco/software security. It installs that one tile, and it gives me a little bit of information. I'll put that a little bit higher for folks at the back. It's telling me the quality of this skill is 84%. The uplift, the impact this skill is going to provide is 1.78 times not having that skill at all. And security, yes, we have security for security skills as well. It's passed the security scan. I'll show you what that means in just a second. But for now, let me start Claude. And I'm going to say to Claude, and I'm in the application, in and around the application project code, I'm going to say, please, and we must say please, because right now we tell the agents what to do. That may not be the case, and they do have good memory. Please run a security review of this application using best practices. Okay, I hit return. It's going to find my best practice. It's installed this skill. Sorry, the skill has already been installed. It's activated that skill. It recognizes I need to do some security scanning. It recognizes I need to validate what I've got there. It's loaded that skill. I'll show you what's in that skill in just a second. But there's one thing I may need to do. In fact, let me move that just so I can see what's happening, because I don't have this running in auto mode, which means it'll probably ask me in just a second, oh, can I do this? Can I do that?
Human in the loop.
Human in the loop, absolutely. Actually, I don't need that. Let's move this up slightly. There we go. Okay, that'll interrupt me in just a second if it needs something from me. By the way, someone asked about auto mode. Yeah. What I would very, very much recommend, if you're doing anything like YOLO mode, which is -- dangerously skip permissions, or running in auto mode, which I think means it can write and read bash files or something like that, always, always, always run it in a container, right? Run it in a Docker container, a Daytona container, whatever container you want. Make sure it has access to what you want to give it access to. That way, it can do whatever it wants. It's in its own little bubble. Don't do that like I would on your own laptop, because that's a bad idea. Okay, right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what this. Here we go. Okay, this is Tessel. Tessel is essentially the registry here for these skills. So I can search for my Cisco software security skill, and I will find my Cisco skill there. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on files. Let's have a look at what's actually here first of all. Okay, I've got a skill MD file. And this file tells me really important things like when to use this skill, activate when doing these things, always apply rules. These rules must be checked on every code operation. And it tells me what I should be looking for. Context-specific rules, blah, blah, blah. And it continues, and it continues, and it continues. Now, there is a huge amount, if I was to go back to files, there is a huge amount of detail here. In my rules here, I think, here we go, whereby If I'm interested in input validation, let's say input validation injection, if I click on this, okay, input validation injection. This is a huge amount of information that we don't always want the agent to read fully every time. This is what we call like a progressive learning, progressive disclosure of context. As and when it needs to know this, it will be loaded in. And it depends what you ask for as to what it loads in. It chooses what it needs to load in. So yes, there could be a time when actually it loads the wrong thing in and it doesn't adhere to that. Sometimes it will load it in and still not adhere to it because it's an agent and it's non-deterministic. But essentially, there's a few things that we care about, and I'll talk about some of these stats in a second. But these rules, you can see, because it's loaded this skill, it's doing a full security check of my application. And it's saying, in fact, here's the input validation injection with, here's the rule, here's what's been broken. And it'll look through and tell me every single thing as part of this skill, whereby the code has gone against the instructions, the directives of that skill. What's super interesting is you can use skills here, not just to validate if my PR has introduced new issues or if my code base has issues generally. It can also use these skills when generating code. So I might say, let's generate some code, but adhere to the best practices of input validation if I'm creating a new input. Let's do authorization while I'm doing a login page. It'll understand what it needs to do. It'll understand the best practices and it'll adhere to those. So you can do it before, as well as during, and then maybe on a PR as well, and so forth. Very, very quick, very, very easy, and it's doing it while it's creating it, even before it's creating it, before it's giving me the answer, it's actually using that skill. So let's take a look at a couple of these, and then we'll try and attack the environment. So we have quite a few criticals. We have a NoSQL injection, which is pretty interesting, on line 39 of index. We probably have a bunch also of third-party libraries that have been poorly used because we're using the wrong versions of them. In fact, it's not actually mentioned the third-party libraries here, I don't think. But I'm going to tell you one third-party library. In fact, it's also told me how things can be attacked, which is good. We'll actually try this attack in just a second. I'm going to show you first of all which, in fact, I can even say which third-party libs have vulns associated with them. And there's one library that I am using that it should pick up, which is called ST. Who's heard of the ST library? Few people maybe, Node folks, I'm guessing. So the ST library is a library that serves public content. And so if I'm using a vulnerable version, I will be vulnerable to something called path traversal. Lots of people probably know path traversal, directory traversal. It's essentially where I am serving up something from my directory, and there is a possibility that I could break out of that directory and get some data, get some information outside of the directory that I have access to. There we go. I think it's a medium. So there it is. Look, XT directory traversal. Okay, so if I go back to my application now, this is my application. You've seen everything that I've got on this application. I can add, I can remove. I've got an about directory or an about file. How would you attack this application for a directory traversal? Any thoughts? I'm expecting the best of the best with a security. Yes, at that. The choose file. Yep.
There's a file upload functionality, right?
Yeah, basically with the file name. Once you upload it, you can basically upload potentially the file in another directory.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good example. This is an intentionally vulnerable application. That is a different vulnerability. So our princess is in another castle. Any other ideas? I'll give you a clue. Something to do with this about. Wow, it looks just as good on the terminal, right? Great.
Dot slash.
So dot slash was the suggestion. In fact, I could even do just public. This is public. This is public stuff though. Is this a vulnerability? I mean, it's the public directory. It's a stepping stone. This is information disclosure of something I don't need to disclose. Never, never, never show a directory. Yes, this is public, but yeah. So the gentleman said, .. Private, that's a good one. Yeah.
ETC password.
Okay, update this to do. Oh, look, become an OWASP member. So it's recognized. This is a real library. It knows .. is a directory traversal. It's taking us back to the homepage. Okay, so it's found the .. It's found I'm doing a .. Doesn't like it. Takes me to a safe place. Say again? A robots.txt? Where would that be? In public?
In public, yeah.
This is normally a site thing, but yeah, not much there. .. was a really good idea. We're close. Let's do it again. Damn. Oh, you mean do it again like this? Yeah. I thought you were saying, you know, what's Einstein's theory of if you do insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different answer, right? But how many times do we do that with machines? Yes, at the back.
Oh yeah, curl is normalizing the path.
Curl is not normalizing the path, actually. So I'll save us a touch of time because I know we're short on time. It's not that. Is there any other way we can represent .. Encoding, URL encoding of a dot is, come on, this is OWASP. Someone must know. 2F is so close. 2F is a /. 2E. If I do that, bang, there's the public directory. We've just broken out. Okay, so I can do that as many times. Someone's wanted the etc password, right? All the way to the root. etc pass wd. There's my etc pass wd, right? So it's like it's pretty easy, right, to do that. In fact, let's do something slightly different. If I was to do that, I think there is an index. What was it? Index? No, it was root /index dot JavaScript. No, roots. Oh, cool. So now I'm in the application source code. I think it said 39. There was a NoSQL injection. Wow, that's big. Mongoose, yeah. Okay, it's about here. This looks like a good NoSQL injection here. So a NoSQL injection is slightly different to an SQL injection. Yeah, I see. Okay. A NoSQL injection here is what's happening is we are saying if the validator, if username is an email, then we do a user find expecting this to be a string. Okay, if that's not a string, something different happens. Let's actually attack it. Sorry, I was in the right place. So let me go back a little bit. I want to show you a few. Here's one I made earlier. Okay, this is me. I'm running an HTTP, effectively hitting the login page, passing admin@sneak.io as my username and super secret password as the password. And yes, that is actually the password. So if I was to run that, no host specified. That's not good. Oh, is it? I need to do it here probably. Okay, so I run that. I get a 302. I'm redirected to /admin. That works. That's the correct password. What if I was to do that with the wrong password? So here, in this case, password is wrong. I run that. We get a 401 unauthorized, of course, because the password's wrong. However, let's do a NoSQL injection. And a NoSQL injection is this. Let me put this up a touch. Oops. A NoSQL injection is where we're passing an object here, all right? And this object this gets executed actually. We're checking if empty string is greater, if the password is greater than empty string. That will return true. So actually now, when we do our check, where is our check? When we do our check, we're essentially doing a check for, are we? Here, we're essentially doing a check that says, is the username, you know, what is it, admin@sneak.io, that passes. Is the password, and then we actually execute this thing to say, are we greater than empty string? Yes. And then it will pass me all it does is then pass me every username where the username is admin@sneak.io, right? So now I can pass this without, and in fact, did I actually run it? I didn't run it. If I run that, now we get redirected to admin, and I didn't pass a single password, right? That's not the password. So that's what a NoSQL injection is. So now what I'm going to say, I'm going to go back into Claude. Where was my Claude? Here's my Claude. I'm going to go back in Claude, and I'm going to say, right, let's fix. Actually, let's resume that last session because I want to make sure. Oops. Oh, shit. No, don't clear. Oh, that might have. Resume. That one. Okay. Right. So if I look at my context, this is my context. All this context was from that last session. So it's a nice, useful way of actually bouncing between sessions. Right. So now I'm going to say, okay, let's fix the NoSQL injection what was it? roots/index.html, and let's update st to version 0.2.5 and restart the server. I didn't say please. No, I'm done with Claude now. Two independent changes. I'll do them in parallel. Excellent. So I'll say, yes, do whatever you want. Yes, do whatever you want. I know. Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So it's gonna update my ST. It's gonna do an npm. It's reinstalling my npm dependencies, and it's also let's see what it does here. Okay, so it removes that. Okay, it's mandating that the password is a string. Okay, so sometimes it depends, again, non-determinism of a agent. Sometimes it checks to see if the type is a string, and if it isn't a string, it bombs out. This time it's actually casting the password into a string. So I'm basically either getting an object. I don't know my JavaScript. I'm a Java person. It's probably going to be some object ID or some object.toString or whatever that does. Someone will probably know. Okay, so it does that. Yeah, do whatever. I didn't even look at that. It's doing a kill. Excellent. Yeah, it can kill whatever you want. Restart the server, and the server's running. So now let's go back. Where did I do that? Oh, I've got too many open now. So let's go back. Let's run the NoSQL injection first. Unauthorized. We've got a 401 trying to do the NoSQL injection. Perfect. Next thing we want to do is we want to see if I can get my etc password. Cannot get. Right, so we've blocked two paths. Now, how can we do this if we were doing secure coding? We would say when we're building, we say, make sure when you're building this, you use the secure path, the secure defaults. The second thing is when we actually send that pull request, we have, who's got the hiccups? Someone's got the hiccups. So when we, I'm surprised that shock didn't actually stop your hiccups. That was weird, wasn't it? The second thing is when you actually create that pull request, you can run Claude in the background on that pull request, and you can say, in the same way you would run a sneak or a mend or something like that, and you can say, just make sure this is, it's like a code review basically, but my agent is doing that based on my best practices, my policies, company policies, security policies, style guides, all that kind of stuff. And then the third place is, of course, just generally when you are doing code reviews, generally, when you're doing red teaming, as was mentioned, that's when we can test for these various things. We know what's in our code. We know what we could be vulnerable to. Let's target that from an external point of view. Okay. Now, context is a living beast. Context is something that should be understood, improved, and live as our code changes and as model change and as agents change. We need to adapt. This is what these tests are for. Would we write code without testing it? Absolutely not. Do we write skills and provide context and not test it? Damn right we do. And we shouldn't. What we need to do is make sure that when we write our context, we make sure it adheres to best practices. We make sure that the context is actually doing what we want, and we understand which bits of context aren't needed or are working poorly in an agent. And that's where this evaluation comes in. So this evaluation, again, this is Tesla. Everything I show here, by the way, on the Tesla side, is completely free. You can go create an account and have a play with it. We have a few things. We have quality, impact, and security. Let's start with security. This is run by Sneak in the background. Sneak has some tools that you can essentially run against any of your skills. It's LLM as a judge. So the LLM is looking at the skill and trying to identify if there are things in that skill that can potentially harm you. So if, for example, I think the last speaker mentioned a web search, that would appear as something probably a little bit advisory. Just be aware that it's trying to do a web search, and the web search could provide you something malicious. You look at it and you make sure, oh, actually, this is coming from the OWASP site. I think I'm happy with that. There are other things that it could be actually a malicious skill, and it should pick up on those types of things. Quality. Quality is something which is, again, LLM as a judge tested, and it will identify if your skill has been written to the best Anthropic's best practices. And this is really important because there are things like discovery, activation, those types of things that are really important for the agent to actually pick it up in the right way. So we look at things like specificity, I hate that word, completeness, other things. Activation is another important one. And we will look at it, we'll provide you with advice as to how you can reword your description, your name, the actual content within your skill. There are a number of skills that we provide as well in, I think it's Tesla Labs, free skills to use that you can actually run and optimize your own skills based on this feedback as well. I think the CLI also has a -- optimize. It can also update, but this is super important. The second thing is the impact. How much better is the agent with the skill than without? If I go on evals, what you'll see is a number of real-world scenarios that we run with the skill and without the skill. And we have evaluation criteria whereby if the solution that is created is done in a way that satisfies the evaluation criteria, you get the points. If not, you don't get the points, or you can get partial points. And you can see from here what is working and what is not. So in this case, uses Argon 2ID. I don't even know what that means. It doesn't do it without the context. It doesn't do it with the context. Right, there's something wrong with my context, or my context is just missing something that says this. This may be an activation problem as well. No hard-coded secrets. I can't believe without context, Claude was very happy to write some hard-coded secrets, but with context, there's obviously follows the hard-coded secrets rule, and it passes that. In some cases, I'm not sure if there are any in this case, I don't think there are, it can actually regress. It can go from 100% maybe to 80%. And what that's saying is my context is confusing the agent. If it goes from 100 to 100, there is no context needed here. The agent is good enough by itself. So am I giving too much context that is actually confusing it? Context should be a living artifact that should live with your code. And as a result, as things change, as code changes, your versions should change. Your evaluation should be associated with your versions, and you should also test this across multiple agents as well. So this is just something that we supply to help you create the best context, the best skills that you can in order to use your agents as securely and as best you can. That's everything I have. Thank you very much for listening, and happy to, if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Awesome. I see a question there straight away.
If you go just a bit down, I'm just confused about one thing here. So evaluated about 2 months ago, if you see.
Yep.
Is it the review that you make on the skills and on the data that we have, or is it the total evaluation that you make after? Because 2 months is a big time with context and everything. AI might hallucinate and drift a lot.
Yeah, great question. So every new version, this is because the version is also 2 months old. So it was done as I uploaded it and it was run. There are a couple of reasons why I might want to test. One could be the model's changed, and so I would actually run an evaluation passing a flag that says use this model for your evaluation, and that's something legitimate that I would probably do, maybe more locally. This is more for guidance because different people are going to be using different models, and it's well worth running this. So you can use the CLI to run it with a model. This is going to be running, in this case, it's going to be running on Claude Sonnet 4.6. If it runs that again, even 2 months later, because the context hasn't changed, it should do exactly the same thing, or with non-determinism, close enough. You can kick off a new evaluation if you wish, and you can make changes to the scenarios, and you can make changes to whatever you want. But yeah, ultimately, you can kick that off at the CLI and then push that. You can push it locally, and then you can, with those results, you can push that if you make changes to the to remote as well.
Awesome. More questions? Yeah, there's one at the back.
So with LLMs, non-determinism is a big problem, right? Like with any evaluation. And do you run like tests multiple times to have an average score, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, non-determinism, I think we run these 3 times, then take an average. So with non-determinism, yeah, of course, if you run something multiple times, oh yes, it's 90%. Oh crap, I didn't change anything and it's gone down to 85, and then you feel bad. So yeah, that is a problem. But ultimately, the thing you got to remember here is if it's 90%, that means, if I run something in my local Claude, I'm not guaranteed 90%. Could be different every single time I run it. So it should be there as your gut feel that I now have data that I can go ahead and make changes to the skill as I want to. It should be an indicator of where you can update your skill. Yeah, great question.
Hey,
yeah.
Ciao.
Hey,
sorry, on the quality of the plugin, right? You show like this one in particular, 85%.
Yep.
This one? Yeah. So long story short, basically these days we are delivering for Claude a plugin which is provided with multi-agent skills, orchestrator, so something like that. And we were working on the quality of the skills, and we did an experiment. We asked Claude multiple times, how would you improve these skills? And every time was, since I think it's not deterministic, right, was always returning like, oh yeah, you should do this to improve the skill or the agent profile, the surface, the whatever. So we ended up in a loop.
Yeah.
Now, like, have you thought about this? Have you faced these issues as well?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And sometimes you can actually just run it a few times and it will come up, it will pick up something else that it maybe didn't pick up the first time. I think there's, in the same way, actually, if we relate it to humans, sometimes I hate to relate AI too much to humans, but it's in the same way that if you share it with 5 people and you pass it down the line, actually the third person will find something the first person didn't. And it's actually good to have a number of different people. It's also good to have, someone asked about using different models. I love that idea of saying, not because of the similar way that a developer shouldn't test their own code, but because different models are looking for different things. And I actually really love the idea of using a model like Gemini. I think I hear is a good one for code review and those types of things. It's really good. So yeah, typically don't run it once and assume, oh, it's going to be perfect. Run it once, maybe run it again, see if there's any other slight issues. The one thing I would say though is when you do ask an agent for that advice, make sure you ground it with some facts. So say, these are the best practices, which is exactly what we do for the quality scan here. These are the best practices. Please judge it and then tell me how I can improve it. And then what we do is, as part of the optimize, you then rerun the test and say, it's improved up to 95%. And then the question of going, well, is this 95% or 98%? Don't forget, Claude or whatever your agent is has still got to invoke it. And there's a lot of work that probably needs to be done in those agents to actually activate the skills correctly as well. So there's a whole bunch there as well. But yeah, running it maybe a couple of times is probably a good idea, but you plateau after a while after that.
Thank you very much. That was quite interesting, actually. My main question is, you've answered most of them anyway. My main question is, where does memory, because I noticed that different models, when you change the elemental values of the memory, behave differently.
Yeah.
Where does memory come in mitigation?
Memory in terms of,
especially
in terms of like
memory.
It's history.
Yeah.
It's history.
Yeah, sir.
So there's a couple.
Agent memory.
So for example,
agent memory.
Agent memory. So for example, if I was to run something in Claude today and I come back tomorrow, is it remembering what I did? Okay. Yeah, it's a really good question. And this is actually where specs and skills are really, really valuable. Because what you want to do is memory should be, what you really want is to tell the agent things that are short-lived and have the agent refer to things that are long-lived. So where things are well-grounded, that should be part of a specification or something which the agent should always be able to refer to. If you don't have that in that kind of a place, it will always, every single time its memory goes, it'll always be asking the same questions. So for example, if I'm in Claude, and let's resume something like, let's resume this. If I was to type in /context now, this is going to provide me with some stuff. This is essentially, everything here is my messages. So this is everything in purple there are my messages. It understands what I'm talking about, and it has that as part of its context. There are other things which it has loaded in. For example, skills. 559 tokens are being taken up by skills. There are other things in its rules, in its Claude MD, its agents MD, whatever, that are there as grounded facts. And every single time that app loads, it reads that. So there are things that should be grounded facts, and those should be a part of the application specification, a part of the skills that are always there ready to reference. So that as soon as it tries to do something, if it isn't loaded, it'll do it again. For example, if I was to say, what is it, compact, let's say. No, what is it, clear? No, it's reset. Clear. There you go, clear conversation history and free up context. If I was to run context now, I get virtually no messages in my context. The memory is clear. If I was to ask it a question now, though, whereby the answer is in the skill or the answer is in a spec somewhere in my project, it will find it, or it should find it, and then it has that memory. So make sure what is clear and grounded information that it should always know is somewhere it can find it in a skill, a rule, or a specification that it knows where it is. If it's not, and it's short term, that's what messages are for. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Yeah. Especially here.
I wanted to ask about how do you reduce usage limits?
Yep.
Or because I know especially with Claude, it uses a lot of usage limits. And
yeah, really good question.
Tokens is the new oil.
How do you reduce usage limits? I mean, if I knew that, I'd be a millionaire probably, because I'll just spread it across the web. So usage limits, particularly the way Claude are doing that right now, is pretty nasty, because I know I've heard so many people, particularly in the last week, talk about their usage limits hitting. To be honest, the way I would get around usage limits is to be agent agnostic. I would get around usage limits by saying, right now I'm going to use Claude Code, and then as soon as that's done, I'm going to use Codex, and as soon as that's done, I'm going to use Open Code, and as soon as that's done, I'm going to use Goose. And I think it's actually it's a very healthy thing for us to do anyway, because to be honest, Claude Code is sitting there at the top right now. It won't always be. I remember all the rave of Cursor a while back, and that was going to always be there. I think doing it in you do get off-peak limits. I think their Cursor Claude right now have doubled, I think, their weekend usage and off-peak. That would help. But I think, avoiding bloat, I would say, in your context is probably the best way of doing that. And if you can do that, it'll not just reduce your limits, but it'll actually make it more effective as well. And the way to reduce bloat is just make sure what's in your Claude MD and your rules files are just what is needed. Don't try and put everything in there, because it actually confuses it as well. And that the skills MD and things like that, only make sure you are adding the skills that you really care about. I think those two alone are probably very, very valuable. Anyone else have any ideas or thoughts about how to make best use of your usage limits?
can I please ask to hold the thought and ask you during the break?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because we have a square-shaped chocolate cake waiting for us. Let's
Awesome.
thank Simon and go get some cake.
And one thing, if I may, if I can just add, because Sam will kill me if I don't. In June 1st, 2nd, we actually have an AI DevCon conference, and it's happening here in London. Sammy is showing the QR code just there
on the screen.
And she's got, there's a 50% off QR code there using code AIND50, which reduces it from £180 to 90.
We're about to launch the agenda. You register before the end of the week, it'll be £75 for a 2-day ticket with workshops and a point.
Wow.
We announced the agenda about the but our tickets, there are actually a lot of
This is like QVC. If you have to do that within the next 5 hours. So yeah, check that out. Thanks very much.